Okay, welcome to another edition of Bizdom. Today I've got an interesting guest. Why interesting? Why? For two reasons. One, this is probably the first time I'm interviewing someone who's as passionate about consulting as me. We discovered that, and also someone who's a rebel, who claims himself to be a rebel, and I can resonate very much with that. Welcome, Shomil.
Thank you so much.
To Bizdom Season 2. And obviously, I think Shomil will do a better job in terms of introducing himself. But just for the listeners here, Shomil runs a company called Appstrail, and they specialize in consulting, especially on Salesforce. Shomil has been at it for a few years now. He runs it he started this with his co-founder. Started this in Bombay, and very soon they've expanded. And not just to serving customers in India, but we also do a few customers overseas.
Correct.
So without much ado, I'm probably going to hand over the baton to you, get you to introduce yourself, and then maybe we can start the conversation.
Sure. I think, first of all, thank you for Deepak having me here. It's a pleasure, and I would say this is my first time doing something like this. I want to make it not so awkward for myself and for you. but yeah, I think it's a great initiative. I think we spoke earlier as well. Great initiative in the sense that we get to talk about not just how we think about, in terms of our customer presence. We have a different personality when we're in front of customers, but who are we essentially? What are we even thinking, right? So this becomes a good place for us to share that mindset, right? From, like you said, from Appstrail's point of view, we're going to celebrate our 4th year anniversary, and I'm flying to Bangalore just to celebrate that with my team. From a company standpoint, the way we think about the business, right? So we're in the business of accelerating industry transformation. What it essentially means is that we want to help customers who have not had the chance of doing, transformation for a couple of years or maybe a decade, right? And maybe it takes them 5 years to get there. We want to cut that time by maybe less than a half, or maybe by 75%, right? So that's what essentially we're trying to do. One of the technology platform that we're using is Salesforce, right? So we will add more in the future as well. So yeah, I think the journey has been good. We're now just close to about 4 years, started with 5-member team, now close to about 110. So yeah.
Phenomenal. I think these are stories that you kind of dream of. I don't know whether you dreamt of this when you were growing up, but certainly I think most entrepreneurs think of building a team, and with this, there is also a huge sense of responsibility because you're not. And you said this, okay, I want to repeat what I heard from you, which is to say that after a point in time, you're no longer working for money.
Correct.
Right? I think then a lot of other aspects kind of start playing in your mind. And one of those is, at least in my case, and I want to ask you this question, at least in my case, has been, you got so many people, and there is a sense of responsibility now, right? Not just with the people, but also the families of these individuals, the community at large, and things like that. So has that been a driving force for you as well, or you're only 4 years old, so you're allowed not to?
No. So I think we're very. Obviously, we're still learning the craft. I would say we don't have everything figured out, but what we do ask ourselves every now and then, whenever we make a decision, is like, if we were in the employee seat or in their shoe, what would we like? Like for example, when we launched our employee benefits plan in terms of giving everyone insurance, irrespective, right? The whole purpose there was, people are very young, people want that cushion that, hey, tomorrow something happens to them, and we were born during the COVID time, right? So we wanted that to happen, but from a company standpoint, which you and I both know, right, this is a cost. At that point, why do you want to spend something on, all these benefits where you can invest something on growing the business, right? But we took a very conscious call saying that, hey, there's so many people who are dependent on us, there are people dependent on them at home, right? Now, this becomes a safety net for them to know that, hey, if anything happens, companies want to take care of you, right? So even that emotion was very important for us. And I think if we start investing on people, and that's been my learning, right? You just have to fight for your team, and the team will take care of everything else, right?
And that improves stickiness.
Absolutely.
You have their back, right? When you go through a tough situation.
Correct.
And needless to say, I think during COVID, probably I know a lot of businesses which started, and probably it's not their fault. They started and they couldn't sustain.
Correct.
Right? Because there was no business. For the first 3 months or 4 months,
There's no business. Exactly.
There was no business. Everyone was twiddling their thumbs.
Exactly.
Right? So how did you go through that phase? I know you're very people centric, but how did you kind of go through that phase?
I still remember on March around 19th, 18th, I was in Hyderabad. And the next day, and I was in the airport, I was looking at people.
Lockdown, right?
Exactly. People are wearing masks, and I was like, I've seen this in China. People wearing, that SARS virus was very evident, right? So, all these people are wearing masks. I said, in India, do we even require this in Hyderabad? And the very next day, I hear about lockdown. And it's just like something we've never experienced before, right? The more important aspect there was my whole plan for the team was we were starting in the next 10 days, and there's lockdown. There is no playbook in the world available for you to even think about, hey, what do you do next? And everyone has their, family to support. Some of them are married. Some of them have kids, right? Now, why would anyone risk everything, quit their high-paying jobs, come join you with a dream and a hope that you are 99.9% going to fail? On top of that, it's COVID, because they have their hands and legs tied together, right? Now, I think that was a time that there was tipping time for us to think about, and for me as well, that how do I convince my team, my leadership team, which I want to, get them on board, how do I convince them that, hey, this is worth it? It took me about 2 months to wrap my brains around, hey, what do we even do, right? So obviously it took me 2 months to think about, come up to my, convince myself that this is something that we want to do. Are we going to create enough impact? And fortunately for us, what was very clear to me at that point was that if you have the core team built out where you do not require any employees, and if you're getting consulting work from the customer, you should be able to deliver within your core team. If you have that mix available, regardless of employees, you're at least going to do justice for the customer. I think that was my, I would say, secret sauce of success. And with that, we just started. We said that, hey, things are going to happen. People are going to say, a different story. But I think if you really believe in something, let's do it. At least you want to give it a shot, right? I think, fortunately, others who are my co-founders and leaders, right, who are with me, they've all worked with me together. So they know me and I know them. And that trust and that bonding was very important for someone to take that faith. And I think we just started, and then we've not looked back. We only benchmark ourselves every year on Foundation Day, saying that, hey, how was day one like? And I think then we just relive those times. That's about it.
Yeah, but the good part about, you're making it sound very simple and sexy, right? But I'm sure it was tough at that point in time, especially for a company which is starting out.
Yeah.
Because you come in with an impression that entrepreneurship is all about exploring your inner self, and then this kind of a setback happens. But equally, I also think, Shomil, at that point in time, what was very good, and especially for a lot of consulting firms, I don't know whether that was your experience, is you didn't have to go and convince the world or your customers that digital was the way.
Correct.
Optimization was the way, right?
Correct.
I think everyone started to believe, whether they were small or big, that you had to do something because that was the only way that they were going to make money. And no one knew how long COVID would last. Right?
Exactly.
So what was that your experience as well?
So firstly, when we started, the first thing people asked, are you freelancers? Are you a company or a freelancing organization, right? So that's the first difference, because we didn't have a office per se, because we didn't want to, right? Working completely remote from home was a very new concept, I would say April, June 2020 time frame, right? People were getting used to this concept, right? But yeah, like you rightly pointed out, digital transformation, or having your processes digitized, companies who had already invested on technology were excelling, versus companies who did not, they were like complete shut, right? So I remember some organization that we were working with, they were not able to take any orders, right? Even because their ERPs are also on-prem, that's since logged in some office that they have, they cannot go to office. So they had like all kinds of struggle, right? So I think organizations, when they were talking to us, they came up with this pent-up demand, right? Hey, we had these projects 3 years, in the making, we could not execute. Now we have this time, we have the bandwidth, we have the people all available. Can you do it for me? But not in 6 months, in 3 months. Not in maybe 3 months, but can you do it in 2 weeks, right? So there's these kind of conversations are a lot, and we wanted to pick up a lot on that, demand, and just run through whatever market had to tell us, we just took those signals, and then we started capitalizing on everything that we could get.
And what was the impact on the business? I mean,
So I think organizations who were able, so I still remember the initial few customers that we onboarded, right? They were like some large organizations were like listed companies back then, where we would onboard them when they were, let's say, doing maybe let's say X odd crores of revenue, right? So as soon as we end up, doing some kind of work with them completely in the agile model, right? Maybe 3 months, 4 months, 5 months kind of deployment cycles, right? They started getting revenue incremental growth in the tune of 2x, 3x in the first 6 months itself, right? I'm not even going into the productivity gain, but the revenue gain was a lot because we didn't do any magic. What we did was only solve for efficiency, right? We just made things much more efficient, much more streamlined, and that's the only first level transformation that we did for them, because now they started getting results out of it, right? We didn't even go and promise them that, hey, we're going to get you the moon, right? So that was the first step that we did. A lot of organizations that we were working, right from financial services customers to maybe manufacturing organization, right? All of them went to the same cycle, but different set of growth in their own specific
trajectories.
Yeah.
Right. So that kind of kick-started, right?
Yes.
I think what you would have done over a 5-year period, maybe you were able to crunch it.
Correct.
Or within a 2-year time span.
So if you're running a race of 100 meters, if transformation is that 100-meter race for you, we will give you that head start of 50 meters. So right, when you partner with us or maybe with any other consulting firm, so I'm specifically talking about the tech transformation side, right? So you get all of that IPs that we have built only for that industry vertical, so that they can come tap into our knowledge base rather than reinventing the wheel. Because see, customers at the end of the day, they're asking for be very consultative in your approach. Don't be like an order taker, right? These are the kind of questions that you typically get, right? But how do you execute that on ground is you need to have executable and proven strategies which really work for our organization, and they need to and it also needs to be, let's say, industry best practice approach, right? So what we did is we kind of coupled everything into a box, and we call them maybe a power pack, an accelerator of frameworks, and we started talking the same language to similar kind of customers rather than going maybe horizontal in nature, right? And that became our flywheel for success, because we're repeating the same thing over and over again, right from sales, consulting, delivery, QA, customer success, everyone's talking the same language.
Right. Looks like you read Jim Collins. So, you use flywheel. Okay. So I'm presuming that you did.
Not really, but I think I'll have to look it up.
Okay. Yeah. So terrific, right? The entire digital bit, and there is we do a lot of work on the digital side. And similar to you, while you predominantly work with Salesforce and you build enablers within Salesforce, right, to make sure that you're able to sell it repeatably or implement it repeatably. In our case, I think it tends to be more a business problem.
Correct.
Like you said, how do you accelerate sales for a company, right? So that's a business problem, and then we could be working with technology partners to help enable it. So there are a lot of similarities, right? So the question I have for you, Shomil, here is digital transformation. We saw that wave happening during COVID 2020 to 2022. Did you see that momentum continuing? Do you see it still continuing? As that kind of, has it fallen off the cliff? Do you think it'll pick up? What's the sense?
The momentum has certainly dipped, right? And it should have, because when we saw that during the pandemic phase, right? If you've noticed how Infosys P&Ls were, right? And if you see their attrition rate, it was close to about 33%, right? Which means that everyone's switching. Everyone's switching, and everyone's now commanding maybe 3x, right? To whatever they used to earn maybe in 12 to 18 month period, right? At certain point of time in the whole ecosystem, right, somewhere the market has to correct itself, right? So we're looking at the dip that has happened. I think a 12-month back period, we were looking at a lot of transformation discussions, not fallout, but getting prolonged, where more decision makers are coming in the mix, more cost optimization requirement, because budgets were kind of getting it was shrinking, because somewhere or the other the money has to flow in, right? But then you're not getting the same 100 rupee that you used to get for the same kind of work maybe 12 months before, previous to that, right? Now, what has happened now in the last, I think 6 to, I would say 12-month period, we're looking at a lot of new conversation having where the starting conversation is about, hey, what can AI do for my business? Now that's becoming the hook, right? And that's my, all organizations who are talking to us or the space that we're operating in, right? That becomes my first point of discussion that, hey, this is what we can do for you. So for example, just giving you a, case in point is, let's say for a chemical organization, right? Can I help you predict, which supplier to buy from? Right? Now that becomes a conversation opener for you, but in order for you to achieve that, what are the different applications or transformations like that you must have? And when you do an assessment, then you know that, hey, you don't have A, B, C, D. In order for you to deliver this outcome, then in that case, let me build that A, B, C, D for you in order for you to get there. Right? So that's the conversation that we are having now. But now certainly it is picking up. And we think that in the next 12 months, it will significantly pick up on the AI side, specifically because organizations do not want to spend time and maybe the traditional approach of technology, but maybe Indian organization might skip the whole transformation wave and jump to a lot of AI-based application. That's the thing that we're looking at when we're talking to a lot of customers. I'm not sure how you see from your lens and how your customers are talking to you, but this is what we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah, I think you actually spoke about 2 or 3 things which I want to kind of highlight, right? So one of the things that you spoke, while we started this conversation by saying you predominantly work with Salesforce, the last 2 minutes, what you told was about helping customers solve a certain problem.
Correct.
And you said AI is one element of that problem. You also said that there could be multiple applications which can help solve the problem.
Correct.
Right. So that's, to me, is the crux.
Correct.
Right. So here is Shomil, who says he's a Salesforce guy, who implements Salesforce for companies, but when you just spoke some time back, you didn't actually speak about Salesforce.
Correct.
You actually said that the customer has a pain point.
Correct.
And there could be multiple ways in which I could help the customer solve the pain point. So I just want you to build on that, because it's also got to do with consulting and problem solving in general. I think most consulting firms or most consultants think that if I am associated with a product or a service, then I've got to get boxed. Right? You're not kind of thinking about the customer who's really at the center.
Correct.
Right? So can you actually throw some light on that?
Yeah. So what I think the success mantra for us has been that, so there are 2 ways of running this business, right? Especially when you're in the tech transformation side. One is you just go and implement something for a customer because you're affiliated with some other brand or technology, right? Because, hey, my answer to all your problems is going to be one answer, right? I don't think so the world works that way. And especially when you're talking to customers, it's a business at stake at the end of the day. And whatever said and done, you need to do right by their business, because a lot of lives depend on that organization's success, right? And if you're not able to create an impact, I don't think so the next 10 customers are going to come from you, because our consulting space works a lot in word of mouth, right? Where people, if you've done a good job, they will refer to you 10 other places, or they might do a reference check. Hey, prove to me where you've done this, show me this track record, right? So I think we follow the latter part, right? Now what we've done is, when we talk about any customer, right? So kind of customers who come to us, hey, you know what? The first problem that I'm facing is I'm not able to map my tertiary customers, right? I'm not able to build a D2C brand and have an entire supply chain automation. But, I have a huge problem in my distributor management system. Now what do? I've got so many point solutions. There's some problems that are coming to us, right? Now in this case, if I were to completely disregard a customer saying that, hey, everything that you have a problem, all answers are only Salesforce or Engine's application, I think customers would not believe you. Because even deep down, even I'm not convinced that that's
Salesforce doesn't believe.
Correct. Exactly. At the end of the day, one pill cannot give you all the utility to solve a patient's problem, right? So similarly, what we try to do is that as an organization, we've created an industry framework saying that, hey, in order for you to achieve transformation for a specific industry vertical, I think your business would also work similar to us in terms of consulting, right? Where that, hey, typically these are the type of problems that we're seeing, and the way to get there is maybe A, B, C, D steps, right?
That's correct.
And that's the framework that we've devised for a specific industrial type of customer that we want to attract, right? And in order for you to go there, you might require maybe one of the many components could be a Salesforce. The second component could be a very different technology that you might integrate with, or maybe kind of coexist, or maybe even white label and sell, right? So we're kind of open to that conversations today, and we're okay to only do one thing but do it the best, right? So when we talk to our customers, we tell them that, you know what, don't think of us as people who are coming and doing one work for you. We're not that MBBS doctor for you. We are your brain surgeons. Only talk to me when you have a brain surgery problem, right? So I think that's the kind of conversation that we're having with our customers. And when you're honest with them, and they kind of reciprocate the same way, because they know now what kind of problems you're trying to solve. I think when we are, like you mentioned in your question, right? We want to solve a problem based on a technology that we have today, but eventually we might maybe introduce many more technologies into our solution stack, and maybe then solve a larger vision problem. It could be, hey, how can you take a business from a 1,000 crore organization to a 3,000 crore organization, right? So we obviously will do some study in terms of hiring number of people, transforming sales processes, maybe increasing production facility, maybe doing upsell, cross-sell, increasing your wallet share with your existing customer base, right? All of these are, I would say KPIs that we work on, and then we work backwards saying that, hey, how long will we take to achieve those KPIs?
It can't be one solution
Correct.
fits all and everything.
Correct.
Again, I'm going to go back from what you said, Shomil, which is, you said that it's a problem statement that you're trying to solve. There could be multiple technologies or tools, right, that you would use. Now, if I'm the customer, you're coming to me and you're telling me that I have expertise across multiple tools. Would that be a believable proposition or a pitch to the customer? Or are you going to say that, look, I'm damn good at Salesforce, but I'm going to bring in other partners to implement some of the other tools? I mean, how does the conversation go?
So this is very interesting for me because it's a very real life example. So when we are competing, obviously we're competing with giants. All these giants are, your big fours of the world who are coming in, all these multinationals.
Or tier one
implementers,
right?
Tier one, right?
Yeah.
So they're tier one. And the way we describe them is they are like my supermarket. I get everything. You go to the supermarket, you get every technology that you have. Even if they don't have, they will still sell you that with the promise that they'll fetch it from somewhere, right? And you're competing with someone where the odds are against you. They have like a lot of superpower with them. And in that case, what do you do, right? So I think in our case, what do we, so when we go and compete, as of today, we're competing with being the best at what we do in terms of a single technology space, right? And where we do not have expertise, we're actually partnering with the right organization to bring in that expertise. And the reason being, customers want us to be that single point of contact because they have the best experience of dealing with us versus dealing with 10 other vendors, right? So we become that single point of contact, and we bring in more people into the entire technology transformation so that it's easy for them to manage, easy for them to understand, and more importantly, we keep everyone in check, right? By the time these giant organizations are getting into the contracting, it will take them legal, all of that, maybe 3 months. By the time they're signing the contracts, we've already completed phase 1. So that's the agility the customers are wanting, in the last 6 months that we're seeing. They want more agility. They want to work with someone who's more forward-looking, more hungry for work, versus someone who's already, even if my business does not go to that company, it's not going to matter to them. Because if I'm going to escalate tomorrow, who's there to listen to me, right? So they want someone who's going to listen to them, take them very seriously. I think we are seeing that kind of.
So the differentiation clearly in your case, Shomil, are twofold, right? So one is the fact that you said that you're focused on one technology. Therefore, if I may take the liberty to say that you're a master in that technology, right? So while you may have bigger shops or bigger firms, but the spread is too wide.
Correct.
Even though they have specialized teams in Salesforce, but I think it's probably, as you said, you're more agile and more proactive, whatever. So that's one. The other bit is the fact that you don't cater to all industries and to all problem statements, right? So in that sense, you are
limiting yourself.
You're limiting yourself, but you're again showing your expertise.
Correct.
Right. So is that the way
so
you would position yourself today?
In a manner of speaking, yes. In fact, today what we do, when a customer comes into our door through, again, reference, sales, all of that, right? We've actually said no to a lot of businesses. The reason being, we don't think that we can deliver a lot of value to them. And, even though money is on table for you to take, if you truly do not believe that you can really solve or give an impact to them, there's no point of doing business, because at the end of the day, after your contracts are signed, it's at the end of the day, your team is supposed to deliver work. So it's like a marriage in the making, because some customers are going to be signed up for maybe 12 months to maybe 36 months or maybe a 5-year contract as well, right? Now, in that case, you have to be very honest at the source level, saying that, hey, are we doing the right job? Are we partnering with the right organization? Are we partnering with the right customer? Now, if we do not believe that we can not solve or give them a lot of value after, let's say, 6 months down the line, then I don't think so partnering with us is going to really matter to them, right?
So you're not everything to everyone.
Correct.
I mean, as they say, right?
Correct.
So you're something to some people.
Correct.
And that's what you want to stick to.
Correct.
Right. For the time being. Fantastic. So what's this Junur or Pagalpan? I mean, what got you into entrepreneurship?
As a kid, for me, all this consulting was unknown to me, right? To be very honest. I didn't know this kind of world existed. We only see them on TV, that people are going to fancy offices, doing deals, signing papers and coming out, right? So I come from this family where everyone's, Shetty is a restaurant, bar tagline, right? Where everyone will have been affiliated or has a restaurant and a bar, that of, right? So I kind of am in the same space as well. And I've only seen entrepreneurship throughout my childhood. I've never known anything otherwise. So as a kid, when I was growing up, I've only seen hard work, and I thought this was the only way you're supposed to work, right? And in my growing up years, when I always fascinated that, hey, what am I going to do right after college? I did my engineering, had the best life, I would say, the most amazing time. Maybe did not study too much there, but did everything possible under the roof in terms of making friends, enjoying my time there, and same thing during my MBA as well. But just post that, the first question I asked myself, hey, I have no skill. What am I supposed to do, and who's going to hire me, right? Because I was asking myself the same question. My journey began there, but over the years, what has happened is, I started building my own craft, right? What am I good at? So I was a very people's person, and I think fortunately, business was something that I could pick up easily, and I showed a lot of interest.
Because of the background as well. Right?
I think because of my background,
Intuitively,
right? Intuitively, it was very natural to me, right? Very
natural.
natural to me, right? So this is something that I enjoyed, more importantly. Now, over the years, what has happened is, when you can build something, which I, previous to Appstrail, I helped build a company from ground up, right? So if you can build for someone, why not build it for yourself? So that was my whole motivation. And B is, not every person gets the opportunity that they deserve. You need to create your own opportunity. I learned it the hard way. And so did my team, right? So somewhere subconsciously, I felt very responsible that, hey, a lot of the teams that you built are also facing this problem. They might not speak up. Maybe, not everyone's the same, right? So I think there needs to be someone who's taking charge of, getting things done, because this is not the right way to do it, right? I think, emotionally, I felt that as a biggest motivator, because money did not motivate me back then. Even though the first time I got my increment, I was very happy only for like 2 minutes, right? And the second thing, it's like, okay, if even this number was 3x, it would not have changed the way I'm thinking about life, right? So I think that was my biggest motivator, saying that, hey, how can you create an impact by people around you? How can you make people's life easier? And more importantly, do what's right? I think that was my biggest motivator, and I took that path. And the other thing was, if you want to start something, start early on in your life. I think life will teach you a lot of things. This every disadvantage that you have in terms of financial disadvantage and a lot of things ahead in your life. But I wanted to do that earlier in my life, so that the next 15, 20 years, when I look back, I don't want to regret this moment that I did not have the courage to take any initiative. I think that's my, I would say my simple, story of what motivated.
And talk to us a little bit about your business philosophy. Just hustle now. I'll allow you to
I think
complete it. No, maybe. No,
Yeah.
where did you get that from? And I mean, what really motivated you to have that as a tagline?
I think, I mean, we're all like, born in that Facebook era. I think I picked it up from, back then, but I truly believe this because, like I mentioned, I've only seen hard work all my life. For me, that's the only course of action, right? And I think I've never been the one who's waiting for results to happen, but rather put your efforts now because results will come. So that kind of works for me. Even in the kind of business that we're doing, all the hard work that we're putting in this year, we might not even get the results, right? So I think my philosophy has always been that invest in doing all the activities right now till whatever extent possible. Results will happen. Timing of the results is not in your control. I think that's my inner belief. And in fact, if you see, when I was working even previous to Appstrail, right, I was competing with people who are like 20 years experience in that craft, right? And I'm this, young guy who's got maybe 3-4 years experience competing in large deals versus someone who's already got there enough 20 years of experience, right? So I knew one thing for certain, right? If I'm competing with them, I'm going to have a huge knowledge gap advantage if I'm able to learn and pick up how they're running the business, right? And I think that's been my whole motivator, that I want to work and invest on myself and the business as much as possible right now, because that will give me a head start maybe sometime down the line, because there's so many organizations who are ahead of us, even our competition, right? So we need to kind of build to compete in terms of knowledge, capacity, financial, everything.
So your advice to young entrepreneurs, should one become an entrepreneur at the age of 20 or 35?
If you ask me, if I were to do it once again, I would do it at 25. Right? I'm like 4 years.
You're being a rebel now because I asked you 20 and 35. Now you're giving me a number in between.
No. So the reason I told you that, so that number works for me because the kind of background that I have in terms of education, and by the time I was just working, I was just 25, 26, right, when I started work. I think I should have started back then. Maybe I would have 100% failed, but it would have taught me a lot more about building business, more important, learning about people. I think more than business, I think learning more about people is more important, because at the end of the day, you can be a one-member organization or maybe 1,000-member organization. You have to deal with people. You need to know what ticks for someone, right? I think if it's up to me, I would say 25, 26 is when I would typically start to learn something, and then maybe start something again in the near future, right?
Right. Yeah. And you eventually started when you were 32,
30.
30. Okay, no.
Yeah, 20 and 30 is when I started.
So not much of a
difference. But yeah.
But you said, you think that the first 4-5 years would have made a big difference?
If you compare this generation, I mean, we have a lot of young people in our organization, right? Even though they might not have a lot of skill, they might have a lot of perception that they have a skill, right? Now, the only way to break that perception is when you have, when your fire is under your ass, right? And the only way to do that is when you have a business, right? Even though business is small, big, it could be a tea stall for all that, for a matter of fact, right? But life will teach you a lot of things and maybe, put you on the right path to succeed, maybe eventually down the line, right? And maybe you might not be the right person to correct them, but someone else down the line will benefit with that decision, is what I strongly believe.
And who has been your inspiration, Shomil? I mean, you looked up to someone. You just said in passing, you made a passing comment saying that a lot of people in your family were in the business. So was that your inspiration, or did you look up to someone outside of the family, or you were your own inspiration?
No. So obviously, I mean, I'm not so self-centered, but see, I've never been a person who looks up to some superlative or maybe third-person view, because I think everyone's got a backstory. But I look up to my father for a couple of reasons, right? One, the way, so my personal story is that my father got kicked out of his own home after he got married, and they all come from this hotel background, and he didn't have any business, right? But he had to start everything from ground up once again after he got married. And I think at 1984 time, it's very difficult, right? And then to build your own from scratch. During that time, and then you have these...
And all this, he was in Bombay?
In Bombay, in that underworld mafia scenarios, right? And then you had this 93, riots. So going through all that curve is not easy. And then, providing for the family, building a very good business, very comfortable life from scratch, right? I think that's inspiration enough for me, because I've seen only hard work. And that's why I say, hustle now, shine later, is because that hustling is why I'm able to do what I'm able to do today, right? Because of, whatever he could have provided me. I
Some
think
of those life experiences really shaped,
Absolutely.
right? Because you were a part of that, right?
Absolutely,
You
yes.
saw it yourself.
Correct. I saw it myself in front of my own eyes. We've gone through our ups and downs, right? But I think we've never had a time when I always know that we're growing, right? Every couple of years, we had a first car. I had my first computer, much ahead of anyone else that could ever afford, right? And that thing kind of only happens when you are starting, or maybe someone's putting that hard work for you. And I was fortunate my father did that for me. And I think that he's been my biggest inspiration till date. And I still look up to him, because at this age, he's about 71, 72. And he still, I still remember that he had some problem in the society. And the way to tackle that problem, he read the whole society bylaw in 2 days, right? He bought a book, he read the whole society bylaw, because he wants to counter people by facts. So having that, the energy at this age to keep on learning and keeping himself updated, like I still can't match it, right? So I think I'm truly inspired by him. I don't say it often, but I think through this medium I've already said that.
Maybe you should show this to your dad, right? Maybe you don't say it to him enough,
Yeah.
right? And is there an incident in your life that was really the turning point for you? Maybe you went through these experiences, as you said, right? But is there one or two turning point?
Turning point for, as in?
Turning point that said, no, I was this guy, happy-go-lucky guy who did not necessarily want to study or whatever, right? But suddenly there was this incident which said, I've got to get more serious. I have to do something of my own. I have to create something. Right? Was there anything in your life, or did any experience change your perspective?
Yeah, so I think one experience changed. So I was like a notorious kid, not focusing on studies, because I'm never that. I don't know what middle ground is. Either I'm
in fully
or out
fully.
fully. Correct. So I cannot be in middle, and that works for me. It's also it works to my disadvantage at most cases as well, right? Now, when I was like growing up, when I'm in college, I was just enjoying my life, right? Not regarding anything, right? Because for me, it's like, when it happens for me, I think I will figure out. I think one of those things was, helped me a lot right now, and it also helped me when I was studying during my MBA, was that when people were trying to enjoy life, for me it's, maine kar diya hai. I don't need this anymore, because this is something that people are now catching up to. Let me now focus on what I need to do in the next couple of years of my life. I think that focus and that perseverance is something that really helped me.
At the right time.
Right time.
And what kind of a person you are? So, are you very fact-driven, number-driven, ingenious, right? or you're someone who says, let me go with the flow.
No,
Okay.
Absolutely not. Right. So I think I'm very my nature is very singular, right? So I go with this personal philosophy, and I think what I truly believe in. Out of 10 times, I might be wrong twice, but 8 times I'm right. I'm okay with this order. Right, so let me do it the way I think is right, because that's a perspective. And I'm not saying that I'm right all the time. I might have a lot of opinions, I might listen to a lot of feedback, but doing instinctively what is right, that I think, based on a lot of feedback that I get from my team and constructive feedback that we are coming to a consensus, doing it that way has resulted in giving me a lot of returns, versus having a lot of democracy and people deciding. I think once or twice you're okay, you might make a mistake, but then the mistakes are on your shoulder, right? It's on my own voice, which I'm happy for that ratio, 80-20 ratio. I'm happy.
Right. So I thought you were very modest.
No.
but you don't seem to be modest.
Yeah.
Right? You're clearly saying that you make 80% of your decisions.
Yeah. 20% I might be wrong.
20% you're wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's what I know I'm wrong, but
right.
Yeah.
Right. And we did speak about consulting, right? And we kind of again spoke about this. There aren't enough Indian consulting firms.
Yeah.
You don't hear any of these names. So why? What's the reason? I have my own theory, but what do you think is your theory?
I think
And I want you to be in the 8 on 10, not on the 2 on 10 on this.
No, so correct. So I think my theory is the reason I think people never had that big of a vision. Lack of having that kind of a dream that, hey, why can you not have an Indian equivalent of that level, right? I think people think that's very foolish, but I think it's doable, right? But yes, it will take a village to get there, and it will take a constructive effort or maybe collective effort to get to that level. And you can't be the only person doing it. It has to be a big four, which is, it could be like a series of a lot of organizations who are at that level, right? So one is having that big of a vision and to dominate not India but the world. People don't have that kind of vision. That's the first reason. The second thing is capital. I think a lot of organizations will, especially in the consulting phase, go through a certain set of cycles, right? There'll be a 0 to 10 one cycle where you will, you might be able to do maybe 10 odd consulting portfolio work in a calendar year, but anything beyond that you will suffer, right? So again, not having enough capital to attract the right talent, retain them, right? And then you'll enter into the second problem, which is your 1 to 10 problems, and you'll have a separate set of challenges that, hey, your first level people are there, but you're not able to build your layers below them, right? So who are actually on the ground executing, right? So that's the second level problem that you have. So capital becomes a very crucial element, which is your I would say the way these consulting folks have solved it by having these LLPs in place, maybe giving them their own entrepreneurship kind of a journey, right? That's the biggest hack that they've ever figured out. I think we also need to kind of find that model that works really well for Indian organizations to go and kind of dominate this space, because I think we have enough talent and I think we have enough motivation to do whatever these folks are doing. And the third thing would be that I think the policies that are there in India in terms of setting up LLPs and making it tax efficient in terms of especially in your I would say capital gains, right? It's not very tax efficient in terms of government policies yet in India, right? And the banks are not helping funding consulting firms, right? They'll only tell you that, hey, you gave an FD.
Yeah. So then why would you keep the
why
FD,
would you
right?
keep the FD, right? So I have so much use of that money, right? So I think the government policy and the banking sector is not very favorable in India, especially in the consulting space, versus that in mature markets that you have in US, maybe Europe, right? I think these are the 3-4 reasons I can think of. That's my theory. I would love to hear what your theory is.
Yeah, my theory is, I think for a very long, in India at least, there's no value for time and for advice.
Oh, agreed.
Okay, it's actually free of cost. I was actually in a meeting some time back with someone, and he was not from the consulting space. He was actually a gamer. He runs a gaming company.
Okay.
Right, and and he kind of, when I was talking to him, telling him about the consulting bit, he was telling me that in gaming, the mobile gaming industry is $100 billion globally, and he says only 4% of that 100 billion is paid.
Okay.
Okay, the remaining 96% is all ads, right? So he says that there is no, people don't want to pay, and even in that 4%, India will be a fraction of that 4%.
Correct.
These are global
Correct.
statistics.
Correct.
So he says in India, आपको ढूंढना पड़ेगा because freemium is only free. There is no premium
Correct.
on that, right?
Correct.
So he says that you have to almost make a market to do this, and things are kind of changing, and we are seeing that change as well. So there's no value for time, there's no value for advice, right? So that's the primary thing. Second, I think people believe that they know it all. At least in the space that we come from, when we work with really smart people, right? We work with owners, CEOs, generally, and a lot of them think that they know what they want to do. The unfortunate bit is we went a step further to say that we are not just helping you with strategy, but we'll also help you to implement and implement using smart people and technology. For a very, very long time, and things are changing now, Shomil, but for a very, very long time, I think technology cost was equated with the cost of hiring people.
Correct.
And in India, that equation is always tilted. The cost of hiring people is lower than the cost of buying technology. in most areas. I'm not talking about your mobile phones and things like that. But if you were to implement, let's say, a Salesforce solution, and if someone comes to you and tells you that I can hire 5 people rather than do it, there, I mean, the discussion ends there.
Correct.
I mean, you cannot.
It's more of a cost discussion rather than investment discussion.
Or a value discussion, right?
Correct.
So how do you kind of beat this? You cannot beat that discussion, right? So that used to be the discussion for the longest period of time. Now I think we are actually seeing that kind of change and people wanting to spend money.
Correct.
Right. So fundamentally, you need a big market to change it. And I completely agree with one point that you said, which is you cannot go and change it yourself.
Correct.
You need the ecosystem to
Correct.
change, and especially consulting firms to change. If you have 10 other consulting firms today saying, I'm going to do it at a price which is 1/5 of what you're going to charge, you have killed it.
Correct.
Because you're spoiling the customer.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
So how do you make this ecosystem change? And this actually is going to be the biggest challenge.
But have you thought about how to change?
Yeah. So the way to change is to educate them, is to have these conversations. See, one of the ways is if you look at the business services space, and particularly if you compare it with what's happening in the US today, right? The maximum number of deals that are happening today in business services is in consulting.
Correct.
And CPA firms getting acquired.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Private equity is very, very active. You look at the last 4 or 5 years data, there is not a single deal in India. Do you know why? One is because of the structure. There is heavy regulation in this space.
Correct.
You cannot go and buy a CA firm out in India because they are partnerships. Private equity will not be interested. They are all very, very centered around the owner. Take the owner out, the business collapses.
Correct.
They don't want to collaborate, right? So you've got some structural issues for you to kind of solve. Secondly, in India, large consulting firms have found out that it is not worth their while to go and acquire mid-size or smaller firms because it's cheaper for them to go and
acquire the client
and the people.
Correct.
Okay, so they don't want to take the headache of dealing with an owner who is like a sunky
Headstrong,
guy.
yeah.
They don't want to do this. So I think the ecosystem or the consulting firms have got to change if they have got to be more competitive. And thirdly, it's about talent. So one is the capital thing, but have you really even gone and invested money in going out and recruiting good quality people? The moment you see money, you take it home. Because the firm's money and your money are the same. No, so you've got to make a serious effort in terms of changing your mindset. And mindset changes take a while.
Correct.
It takes generations to come in. And consulting, to me, is less than a 10-year-old industry in India. Even though, I mean, I'm not... Leave aside the big consulting firms, the EYs and the MBBs of the world. But consulting in general is a 10-year-old industry. It's going to take time, but I think things will change, and I hope that the government also, I mean, the CA Institute and all of them work together to remove some of these regulations to make it more competitive.
I totally agree, but one of the things that I think what from our lens has to kind of change for the whole industry to grow is not look at, so obviously when you're engaging with a customer, or you'll have some, X amount of fee that you will charge, etc., right? Like how incentives work for an employee, rather than saying that, hey, if you don't do 30-day, shift in a month, I'll pay you 100 rupees, 100%, but if you're, taking X amount of leaves, I'll only pay you based on how much money that you've logged in, right? But there's no incentive for them to earn 2X in that month, where you're creating a plan saying that, hey, if you do this for me and if you're able to deliver X work for me, correct, I'm going to 2X, right? I think that same impact should come in the consulting side of the world, where a lot more of our conversation is about, hey, if I can deliver 10X for your business, I'm going to be more motivated, because I know that tomorrow if I want to earn more money, the only way to do that is I have to get you results. So I'm actually motivated to ensure that results are delivered to your business, and what better than...
And the interests are aligned, right?
Exactly. And then regardless of maybe I'm putting 10-member team for your work or maybe a 100-member team, and that's my effort, right? Because I'm more interested in the impact, because that's the biggest gain that I'm going to get, right? I think this is a mindset shift that I think a lot of consulting firms should start pitching to a lot of organizations, because if the organizations are growing, I think there's more money everyone can make.
We made for everyone.
For everyone, collectively, and that's how you're going to compete with those giants, right?
Exactly.
I think that would be my 2 cents of how...
Absolutely. So you hit the nail on the head. This is a conversation that we have been having over the last 10 years. Okay. It is difficult because the ecosystem, when I say the ecosystem, even the large firms have got to have this conversation. Today, if you're getting money on the basis of a per hour charge out, why would you have this conversation? Because it's an easier way to make money.
Exactly.
Correct. So if your brand sells today, why would you have that conversation?
Correct.
Unless someone really comes and pushes you.
Correct.
So we want to be that force. I'm not saying it in any negative sense. I'm saying it in a positive sense. We want to be that force which forces the incumbents to change their business model. Because if they do that, then there is true partnership.
Correct.
Then
Agreed.
I think clients then start picking a service provider on the basis of who delivers and not on
impact.
On impact and not on the basis, not just on the basis
on
of brand.
time sheet and people. I think that's like all trivial way of doing business.
Exactly. We should talk about this a little bit more. And maybe my final question here, Shomil, is what next for you? You're bootstrapped. I think that's again a very rare thing. I know we are services.
Yeah.
Services don't attract too much funding. People don't want to fund. But at the end of the day, you're building something which is very differentiated. Though I think we spoke about this, the fact that you're doing Salesforce today, but that's not your plan. That's not your vision, right? You're keeping your customer at the center. And you're trying to enable the customer, create an impact. Now, what next for you? What can we expect next for the customer? What next for your people? I mean, why should someone come and work for Appstrail?
So I think there are a bunch of questions. So the way I would say that there's a lot of immediate cash that you can generate in the consulting space, right? The returns are faster, right? In fact, we're seeing the reverse. We're seeing a lot of interest from organizations who are actually wanting to pick up, growing consulting firms who are, let's say, mid-size or near about our size, so that they can go and take that service to a lot of their install base account, because they have no idea, because they've kind of flatlined in their growth trajectory, right? And they need someone to kind of infuse a lot of fresh blood into their organization so that they can again start seeing growth, right? So we're seeing, in fact, a lot of conversation that we've had, and I keep, in my network, a lot of people reach out. We keep evaluating, right? Hey, what's there for us, right? Just it gives me a good benchmark, saying that, hey, are we growing? Are we even relevant? Are we in the right space? What kind of conversations are people having? What kind of IPs people are building, right? So
these are Indian
organizations or investors from a mature market, or maybe typically NRIs, Indians, they wanting to kind of pick up capabilities, right? Again, coming through a network reference, so they kind of I'm having these conversations every couple of months with some of the other, and the reason being because they want to take this business might not look it might not appeal to a lot of organizations or to a lot of audience, but this is not so sexy. It's not a product company, right? But the best part about this business is it generates a lot of cash.
Correct.
Right? So I think I have been asking myself the same question. Hey, what next will happen? What next for us, right? So the way I imagine things is that at the end of the day, your organization needs to generate a lot of employment. You need to give growth to people in terms of about professional growth, financial growth, and even mental and emotional growth as well, right? Not everyone can do the same job for the next 10 years, right? So there has to be some advantage that they get by working alongside you. We don't believe in the concept of people are working for us. I think we're working together as equals, right? So I think we go with that philosophy. So I think a couple of years down the line, we think that our professional services business, which is what we've built, is obviously going to be there, but we think that eventually a lot of innovation will come our way, especially in the AI side. Maybe in the future we want to go, I think the markets will go towards where hardware and software are going to kind of club together. So any organization who can deliver that promise to maybe a product company, or maybe to a maybe a manufacturing, or maybe a consumer in a tech company, right? I think people would want to partner with such organizations. I think in the future we think a lot of products is something that we will kind of build, and a professional services arm will kind of benefit from all of these peripheral or business verticals that we will create eventually, right? And if so much opportunity is getting created, obviously there's a lot of growth opportunity for people who are already there in the company, plus more people who will join us in this entire journey, right? So I think that's the advantage that people get, and that's what we think we're trying to create in terms of impact, both in the consulting space, because we get to learn a lot of things, right, from customers at the end of the day, and implement that to build a lot of value in the ecosystem.
So you seem to be clearly saying that you're building to scale,
Yeah.
and not building to sell, right? I also happen to believe that you never say no.
Correct.
Right? You're always you have got to pick one path.
Correct.
But if there is a lucrative offer,
Absolutely.
who knows, right?
Like I said, 80-20, right?
80-20.
Right. So I'm always checking in,
Right.
if there's an option available, just to tell myself that, hey, is it the right thing to do or not? So we always have that door open with us. But then 80%, I think this journey that we're taking is always
Right.
the right way forward.
But we do need smart, committed, passionate entrepreneurs in this space, Shomil, because as you rightly said, and we also believe in this, is that you need the ecosystem to really fire.
Correct.
If consulting has to move up
Absolutely.
the value chain in India, we need smart, committed, passionate people to be there. But with that, I would like to bring this episode to an end. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for all the nuggets of wisdom. And I love your background from a restaurateur to.
But eventually, I will do something maybe 10 years down the line in the restaurant space.
restaurant space. Yeah.
As I would say that's running in my blood, just to keep the hopes alive. I might do it, but that's just a side pet project I might do 10-15 years down the line.
Right, but brilliant. I mean, and all the very best for the
Thank you so
for the
much.
new arrival.
Thank
for the
you
new
so much.
home,
Yes.
Right, and wishing you all the luck.
Thank you so much.